So today I'm going to be teaching on what are called the SE and the more intermediate A series instruments by Lowrey. The SEs, there's an SE5, SE10, SE20, SE30. Oh, and there's also an SE1 and 2. Those are the very beginner ones. Um, Also an A200, A300. So if you have one of those, this class is for you. Those are just some model numbers. If you don't have that, you'll be fine. This should work for you too. Um, I'm actually going to utilize the chat feature today a little bit. So if you know how to use that, that'll help you. If not, that's okay. But what you can do is I'm going to play a song just to get us started, just to have some fun. And while I do that, you can listen, but just try to put in the chat just a song title you think I might be familiar with. Because what I want to do is, with this class, sort of do a little bit of a review as far as how to set up the instrument to play a song very easily without a lot of work. And then the second part of the class, I'm going to give you some new stuff. So not as much review, but I'm going to give you some ideas of some different buttons you can do or press to sort of adjust that to your liking. So take it a step further here. So just put a song in the chat if you feel like it, and maybe we'll use that as an example. I like to know what you guys like rather than me just playing. So here is a song called Hit the Road Jack. I played it when we did our New Year's concert on one of those great big instruments. And now I'm just going to play it on the Odyssey and make it sound just as good. Here we go. I hit a wrong button. I'm going to start that over. I forgot to push the smash chord here. So we just start with the drummer, even better. All right, so that was Hit the Road Jack. And I see nobody put a song in the chat, so oh well, I'm going to have to make it up as I go along then. Mac the Knife, thank you, Winnie. That's a good example. So what I was going to talk about, like I said, I'll do two things. First, I'll just review a little bit of things we've talked about in this class before. We've done the SE series class and A series class, all these different classes several times. And I was looking through them the other night thinking, what am I going to teach? We've done everything. You should know everything by now, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach a couple things we haven't talked about, what I like to call tidbits, just some extra things that you can do to, or that you should know when you're kind of going through your song, and just to kind of customize it a little bit. So let's start out. I'm just going to turn everything off here as if I'm just sitting down to play. And I want to play a song. I'm going to start with Mac the Knife, which Winnie put in the chat. So the way I start this out, you've got a couple different options. Say you get home from a long day of retirement, and you want to play a song, and you sit down and you want to play Mac the Knife. What buttons do you press? Oh, no. Well, you can say, well, you can start out with this. If you have this button, Song Setup. That is the best place to start. If you just want to sit down and play, use the Song Setup button. And we've talked about it before. This is on the, if you have an SE instrument, it's on the Regency on up. So if you have a 2-keyboard instrument, you should be good to go. But if I touch Song Setup and I scroll to the letter M for Mac the Knife, I should be able to just hit Enter and start playing. But oh no, it's not in this instrument. What do you do next? Any ideas?
Pick another song.
Pick another song. Yep, that's it. That's all you can do. You can't play it if it's not in your instrument. Yep. No. The answer is you go by genre. So a genre or style of music we've talked about in this class. Let me try this here. Those are these buttons right over here. They're always blue on the left side of the panel. Anywhere from big band, country, Broadway, march. Those are called genres or rhythm styles. Okay? So what style of music out of these choices that I have here would you call Mac the Knife? Oh, my hands are shaking. I can't even hold this camera still. Let's go back to this. Any ideas on what kind of genre you would call that?
How about big band?
Big band? Yeah, you hear a lot of brass in the background, things like that.
Swing.
Swing? That could be good too.
Country.
So, country? Well, I don't know about that. Maybe. What's nice about a lot of those standards type songs is they've been played by a lot of different people in a lot of different styles too, so you can kind of make it your own as well. Let's start with big band here. I'm just going to touch the button that says big band and then try it out. What I like to do is kind of process of elimination. So I'm ready to play a song. I pick a rhythm, and all I do is I just hit a chord just to listen to it. Then I hit stop, and I think, is that going to work? I think that might work. One thing you can do is go one step further and say, I don't know about those brass guys in the background. It sounds like a bit much to me. You have a button right next to your rhythms called Orc Plus, Orchestra Plus. If I turn that off, it's going to turn off the orchestra in the background. So all I have is drum, bass, and guitar. So let's try Mac the Knife with that and see if it works. That's not bad, not bad. So, long story short, the two best ways to start a song is song setup. Look for it in there. We've talked about that in this class before. If you're just joining us, we've got all these videos on YouTube you can check out with different classes like that. So we've talked about song setup, and what I did is kind of process of elimination. If I didn't like that, I said, nah, that's not good enough, I can do, as some of you said, I can try the swing button and try some different styles within that category. Or maybe foxtrot, something like that too. Or heck, if you like country music, play it in country. That's the third step. So the song setup, go by what genre you think the song is. Or the third way, do what you like. If you like country music, do it as a country song. I bet you can make it sound pretty good. Here's Mac the Knife if I want to play it with a country band. That's a fun experiment to try. Play it as your own. We did that with our, we did a New Year's, I think it was the New Year's concert. No, after the New Year's concert we did in January this month, we did a mishmash of different genres put to different songs, and it was a lot of fun. You can try that at home too. It's really fun to do. So, Country Mac the Knife. It works. So, all right, as I said, I'm going to kind of build on that a little bit today. We've talked about things like that in the past. Pick a genre, play the song. Now let's tune our ears a little bit. So let's learn a couple tidbits. So I don't have a handout for this class, so hopefully you write some of these things down. They will be useful. I think it works a lot better when you take notes versus I just give you a sheet of paper and you look at it and go, okay. Because then you retain the information. You'll actually use it. So the first thing we're going to talk about is changing our right hand sound. So I'm going to talk about this section over here, the red and blue buttons, which is scary. A lot of people don't talk about those buttons. I just helped a student the other day, and they said, okay, they just got a new instrument. They say, okay, teach me this area. And I said, nah, you're not ready. This is a complicated area. I'm going to make it a little bit simple. I'm not going to go way into it, but I'm going to keep it simple and tell you how this works over here, because I get that question a lot. But I do want to preface it with this whole right side, you don't need it. You don't need to use it. You can use it, but you don't need to. If you have what are called presets in the center of your instrument, either a 1 through 4 button, or sometimes like this one, it goes to the number 8, or like the one behind me, I have a Holiday Classic back there, goes to 10. 10 different choices of sounds to play with your song, okay? If you were in the last SE series class, that's what they talked about. They talked about these presets in the middle. So that's the easy way. If you want to be really specific, that's what this section over here is for. This, what I call it, is your sound library. Let me move this a little closer here. That's your sound library over here. So these are where all your right-hand sounds live. Now, like I said, what's nice is these buttons in the center. What I like to think of them as is sort of your librarian, okay? Because you got your sound library, and these buttons are your librarian, okay? Say you go to the library. Do they have those anymore? Do you just buy them online? I don't know. But say you go to the library and you tell the person, I want romance. I want the romance novels. Well, what happens is, say you want, or country books. Let's just say we're touching the country button here. Your librarian here picks out all the best country books. Does that make sense? So rather than you have to find them yourself, your librarian finds them, okay? So let's just say the library was short-staffed that day, and you kind of have to go find the instruments yourself. That's what this area is over here. Whoops! Oopsie. Let me get a little closer here so I can kind of talk about this a little bit better. Woo! Okay. So you have, on the left side, you have a bunch of red buttons, and it says orchestral. And then you have a bunch of blue buttons, and it says solo. Does anybody know the difference between those two? You can either raise your hand or just unmute and talk if you know the difference.
Monophonic and polyphonic?
Yes, that must be a smart student. I wonder which student said that. That's a great answer. If you know what that means, does anybody know what monophonic and polyphonic even mean? The answer, let me see. Marianne Townsend, let's see, what you got? You know the answer?
Single and multi.
I heard somebody say something. What was that?
Mono means one, and poly means more than one. So I would say the solo is just one instrument, and the orchestra would be many instruments.
You got it. You got it. So let's talk about it a little bit more. So basically, what Marianne just said is it's the orchestral is going to be your polyphonic sounds, which means more than one note at a time. The solo instruments, the blue ones, mean one at a time, one note at a time. Okay? The difference is if you think of some solo type instruments, that would be things like a trumpet, a clarinet, tuba, and that is because they only can play one note at a time. You can't play a chord on a tuba. You can play one note at a time only. So what Lowrey does is they separate them. So if you want your right-hand instrument to sound very true to life, you want it to sound like a real tuba or a real clarinet or trumpet or saxophone, choose the solo sound. And the reason for that is it'll only let you play one note at a time. So let's turn everything else off for a moment. Whoop, I want it off. Off, nothing. There we go. I've got nothing on the top here. So I'm going to put trumpet. I have a trumpet on now. Nope. Now I do. Now what happens is if I try to play another note, it simply changes to that note rather than play them both at the same time. So I'm going to touch a C note, and then I'm going to go an octave up and hit the other C. It'll only play one at a time. Okay? That's so you can kind of do some little tricks, like if you want it to sound like a real trumpet, you can kind of do a little flicker. So it'll only let you play one, and it sounds very real. If you do a trumpet on the other side, or let's say just do trombone instead. If I do a trombone, which should also be a solo type instrument, if you try to play two notes, it'll actually let you, so it might sound kind of weird. So the orchestral section is probably a little bit better for things like pianos, you know, where you have chords and all these different notes. So if you play a piano on there, you can play all sorts of notes at one time. So you can do chord on the left and then notes on the right hand if you want. Not that we here usually you play too many notes on the right hand at once, but that's why they do that, okay? Now, that's just the simple part first. So the only thing you want to know, this is my tidbit for this whole section, is you can experiment and play around with all these different sounds in here. Let me show you a little closer again. I'm just going to talk about the orchestral section really quick only. So let's look at those red buttons real quick. It's a little blurry, but you can see that I have all these different shortcuts like piano, jazz guitar, banjo, vibes, accordion. And then there's this one on the bottom called Genius. Does anybody know what that one is for? You can speak out if you know. Unless your name is Joni, then you cannot. Unless nobody knows. Does anybody know what the Genius button is for? Ron, Marilyn?
Your Genius button, you select the instruments that you want to play.
Correct. So instead of having these shortcuts, you know, of different popular instruments, the most common ones, the Genius button here is if you want something specific, if you want something different from that, the Genius button has all of the sounds in your instrument. So anywhere from flutes, trombones, trumpets, pianos, electric pianos, strings, brass, ensembles, you know. You've got the whole shebang right there. So when you touch the Genius button, say you want a different sound that's not on your panel. If you touch the Genius button, what happens is on your touch screen or information center, oh gosh, I can't make it. There we go. It'll give you a list. It says Orc Genius. Right now it's on country guitar. If I scroll up or down, I can look through every single instrument, every single sound in your instrument. So all sorts of organs, oboe, harp. And once you find what you want, just leave it. You know, so if you want a fiddle, just leave it and play. Uh-oh. It's not playing. let's talk about this. There's all these instruments right here. Whoops. All your instruments are on this side here. And what's over here is where that sound is and what it's doing. So if you want it to be on your upper keyboard, just make sure it says on. Easy enough, right? So we're not even looking over here. We're just looking at Genius. And make sure you turn it on. And then there you go. Now I have a fiddle on the upper keyboard. Okay, so my tidbit for you, though, my sort of, I don't want to say caveat, but I don't know. The only issue that people run into here, this is the most common thing, this is why people give up on it, is they'll, say you just played a song, let's just change the rhythm here. Say I just finished playing a Latin song, okay? Your instrument is already set up. When you touched that Latin button, it gave you a good sound. It gave me vibes. If you say you played a Latin song, that's what it gave you. And now if you want to change that sound, what a lot of people run into is something like, let's play a different sound. So let's say I was playing the organ with that. And say, now I want to play something different. I go to my Genius button, and I find a sound that I like. Ooh, cello. I love cellos. So say you're playing, you set up a cello on here, and you start playing. And you hear other sounds in there, too. Why are there other sounds mixed in? Does anybody know? That's because a lot of the time when you pick out what you have here, you did part of it. But what happens is there might have already been something set like this. It actually has upper, what are called tabs on. So these lights that are on here, those are always anything in this upper area. If you have a touch screen instrument, they're in the form of tabs going across the front. If you are on something like this, they're just little buttons here, and they say upper. This is the most important part of the class. Anything in the upper section, if it says upper or upper tabs, anything like that, anything that's lit here is going to play on top of whatever you selected here. So I may have a cello in here, but I'm going to have these organ sounds, these tabs, playing on top of it. So now when I want a cello, now it's a cello and an organ, which is yucky. So just make sure if you pick out a sound you like anywhere in this right-hand section, make sure you turn off any other sounds going on. So if any of these buttons are lit, turn them off. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? If you have a touch screen on your instrument, there's also a tab to the left of all those where it just says upper tabs and it's red. And right when you turn it off, it turns off all of those. Even if all the lights are on, nobody's home. So it says upper tabs, just turn them off. Capiche? Does that make sense to everybody? Any questions on that so far? I see one question in the chat that sent to me. It says, does the Genius button on a Liberty do the same? And the answer is yes. Sterling, Liberty, anything like that. If you have what's called an EX or E-series instrument, rather than Genius, since that's more of a code word, they just call it sounds, which is what it is. So your Genius button just has a list of sounds to use. So if you have Marquee or Rialto, anything like that, it'll just say sounds. But it works exactly the same way, sounds. And it gives you a list on the screen where you can go through all the different sounds. But yes, so that's the key to all this right-hand nonsense, is just to make sure that once you pick something you like, make sure there aren't any other sounds on. So now that I turn those tabs off, I have a beautiful, beautiful cello, and there's no organ playing on top of it. as well as make sure the solo buttons aren't on as well. So if you have any of these solo buttons, make sure they're off. So all you have is the one that you picked. Okay? That's the biggest issue you run into. So that's tidbit number 1, basically. So make sure you understand that. Any questions from anybody?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah,
That's
Woo! Sorry. Go ahead.
I do the same thing. That's very hard to do if you want to change the instrument in the middle of a song.
Oh yeah. That's why. Like when I said a lot of the time when people ask, "Hey, show me how this works," a lot of the time I say, "No, you don't need it."
Yeah.
But like I said, it just depends. If you want something very specific, a quick sound, and you don't know where to find it in here, but you see, banjo, like say you want a banjo, if you see it on the panel, you can use it. If you touch banjo, just make sure, like I said, any other sound is turned off. Because that's the most common issue, is somebody will turn on a banjo and I get a call saying, "My banjo sounds wrong." And then I say, that's because you have your tabs on too. And then it sounds better. So just make sure you turn off any tabs or other sounds, and you can get it working. But as Inez said, yes, it's going to be very tough to do that if you want to play it in the middle of a song. Because say you start out a song, Mac the Knife, for example, and throughout the song you say, "Okay, I'm bored of this sound. I want a new one." The easiest way is to use your librarian. Have them pick out a sound for you. Get a book recommendation. I like to think in analogies. It makes it a little easier. But when you touch a number, somebody picked a sound for you to use, and it's going to sound good. You're going to like it, for the most part. But if you don't find something you're looking for, if you want something very specific, you can find it over here. And if you want to, if you know how, or if you have anything above this, or this Odyssey and above, so on some of the smaller instruments you may not be able to do this, but anytime you see a memorize button, that means you can save your work. So if you find some things you like and you say, well, that's going to be hard to push all those buttons in the middle of a song, you can save that so that it's already set up for you. You don't have to push all these buttons. You just touch one and it'll pop up. Now, I won't go too much into that because we have other classes where we actually dive deep into that, deeply. So that's my tidbit for the right hand. So if you're going to pick any of these sounds and you want to hear exactly that, just make sure you turn off any other sounds or tabs. Okay? That's super important. So I'm going to go a little bit to the left hand now, if we don't have any more questions on the right. Any questions on this? Cool. The test is on Friday, so just kidding. But on the left side, now, let's say we want, did we have any other suggestions? Let's use, I see in the chat somebody said "Fly Me to the Moon" earlier. Let's change it up. Let's use that one. Let's say you want to play a song and you like the right hand, but maybe you don't like something about the left hand. There's something weird in the back that you don't like, okay? So let's take our rhythm a step further. So for that, I already know I want big band. I want to play "Fly Me to the Moon." Actually, I don't think I know "Fly Me to the Moon." I'm going to say "Come Fly With Me," the other Fly song, because I know how to play that one. So let's say I'm going to play "Come Fly With Me." That one I know a little bit better, so it's just a little easier for me. Now let's say I put on big band, I put the tempo where I like it, and I'm ready to play, and I start playing, and then there's something I don't like about it. So let's try this. Well, first, I can find a couple things I'd like to change. The first of which is I'll start with my favorite thing to change. This is what I change because I'm a perfectionist with the chords on the left hand. I like my background sounding just right and not playing over my right hand. So if I'm playing a melody sound, I'm going to change my sound to something else. I'm going to put on trombone. Oh, see, I got strings on. Make sure to turn those off. And now I should just have trombone. If I'm playing a song with a trombone and the background is just crazy on top of me, I don't know about you, it might not show through Zoom, but what I hear coming out of the instrument is a big blasting background and then just a nice little trombone player in the back. And he sounds kind of quiet, right? I hear this issue a lot too, that I can't hear my right hand. The left hand's so loud. What you can do, my favorite thing to do, is you have several volumes and what's called a graphic mixer on the left side of your instruments. You all have this somewhere. Okay? So on the left side, the first thing that I like to change, can't quite see the levels, but you have one called lower. Okay? Have you ever played and you hear a hum in the back? You kind of hear something humming in the background? This lower here, that's your hummer. This is just the lower volume here. Pertains to this, your lower section or lower tabs if you have tabs. So anything that's on here, all these lights, your volume for that is called lower. See, look, lower, it says it right here. And then you go over here, there's your volume for it. So a lot of the time, when you're playing it, the volume's kind of high. It's already set like that, so you might hear a... Did you guys hear that, all that noise in the background? One thing you can do if you don't want all that stuff in the background, just turn this off. I just turn it all the way down. So you can turn the volume all the way down, or I could turn off all these tabs that say lower. Anything that says lower, turn it off. And now you're not going to hear a hum. So if I touch a chord, now it's just the band. So now all you get is your band. So you hear bass, drums, a guitar player in the back, and you hear that Orc Plus that I talked about earlier. So, any questions about the lower section, or lower tabs, or lower keyboard? Any questions on that? Because that's super important. I hear that so much where there's a hum, something's humming and I don't like it. You can turn it down over here or off with your tabs. Marianne, go ahead. You got a question? Oh, I can't hear you. You are muted.
Do you
There you are.
do you have to turn both of those controls down?
Nope, you
So
can do
did you
one
want
or
to-
the other. You can turn this volume all the way down and you won't hear any of it. Or you could just turn off any tabs that are on. So if any of these buttons, right underneath where it says lower, if it says lower and any of them are on, you could just turn them off. So either way works. If you want them on but just very quiet, you can just turn this volume down to where you like it. But
Okay.
that's one thing I do is if I hear that background just kind of playing on top of me, like if I was playing that song the way I kind of had it with the trombone, I can't even hear the trombone player because there's a bunch of crud covering him up. So when I turn it all the way down, or if I turn any of these lower tabs off, you could even do that. Just swipe across them. Woo! Turns them right off. And now it's going to sound a lot cleaner.
still hear it?
No, I turned it off so I don't hear it. What you do hear, though, it still sounds like there's a bunch of people playing in the
Right.
background
I
at the
mean, it's
same
not
time.
completely silent. It isn't completely turned off. You do have
No.
some sound.
Yeah, but what that sound is it's your orchestra plus. It's those brass and saxophones, and I think that rhythm even has a couple string players in there too. And if
Oh.
it's just too much, that's your second part. So step 1, you can turn off any of these lower sounds. Step 2, turn off or turn down your orchestra plus. So that's over here on the left side. It's by your rhythm controls here. If you want to turn all of those players off, so here's those background guys. I'm just going to play a chord. Hear all those guys in there? That just turns them right off. Or if I like them there, I can just turn their volume down a little bit. So I've got those two choices. I can turn them all the way off, or I can use the graphic mixer and just turn their volume down so they're not playing on top of my trombone player. So if I do that, just turn the volume down about halfway, now it's going to sound really nice. And that's, I can't even hold 3 fingers up. Those are two ways to kind of customize your background very easily. Turn off the lower sounds, or turn off orchestra plus, or adjust their volumes. Okay? Let me mute there.
Yeah.
And the last option, if it still sounds like there's too much or something you want to change in the background, you have the orange buttons. So if you kind of look, this is really neat. All these buttons are color-coded for you. So Orchestra Plus, see how those levels here are kind of brown? And then the button over here is kind of brown. See how the lower, it's gray? And then you see how these lower tabs over here are gray.
Okay,
The last
yeah.
one here, these orange buttons, that's your bass. If you hear too much bass, you know, some people say it's booming too much, or I hear a lot of low end, you know, you can either turn them down with your graphic mixer here, or if you look up, there's another orange button. You could even turn them all the way off and have no bass at all. So you could turn that off, turn it on, or adjust the volume the way you like it. Okay, those are the 3 I talked about: lower, orchestra plus, and bass. So if you hear something in the background you don't like, adjust those to the way you want it. Any questions about any of those? Like I said, it's good to write down and just try it once in a while. You don't have to, this is stuff you don't have to use every day. Like I said, the easiest way is to set up a song by song setup. If you don't have it, pick a genre or rhythm style that you think will work well, and kind of do a process of elimination. Play one, listen to it. If you don't like it, go to another one, listen to it, and then go from there. So if you like the way that rhythm sounds, but maybe you don't like those background players a lot, turn them off. So you can kind of adjust and make it your own that way. I like to do that a lot. If those background guys are too loud or something's going on that I don't like, I just, right before I start, I just turn them off. I say, go away. Because remember, these are also called virtual orchestras. And you're the band leader. If you don't want somebody playing in your band, send them home. You know, you can fire them for the day or just let them go home early, take the night off. Turn off Orchestra Plus if you don't want them there. Because a lot of the time, they'll cover up whatever you're trying to do with your right hand. You know what? See, I don't like all that background stuff, so I might turn it off. So when I turn them off, it sounds a lot cleaner, just the way I like it. If you like all the loud stuff in the background, don't turn it off. Easy as that. So that's what we talked about, controlling your left hand, your band, just the way you like it. But make sure that anything on the right hand gets chosen first. So choose your right hand sound first, and then go to the left here. Yeah. Any questions on anything I talked about today? Anything I blabbed about? Anything I yammered on about? Kind of just said a bunch of things that you can hopefully use. Like I said, I looked through all the classes that we've taught before, and I was like, well, gosh darn, we taught about most everything there is. So this is just stuff you can kind of tack on. Just tidbits, as I say. So I see no questions. Lots of great ideas, though, in the comments. Good class. Thank you. So, well, I don't think we have too many announcements at the moment. Let me pull up our website here just so you can kind of look, and I can show you a little bit of what's coming up. It's too big on the screen. Let's make that a little smaller. There we go. Okay, first I'm going to show you. What's great is most of you have been to our website, and I know that because that's how you got into this class. So our website here, when you go to it, the most important button is right here where it says Classes and Events. So this is how you got to our class today. If you scroll down, this is our weekly class first. This is the one we teach every week called the Variety class. Let me try to make this so you can see a little better. There we go. The Variety class, weekly. You click on there, click the link to get in, and you're good to go. I have a lot of people that call and say, well, where's the class for today, the SE series class? You make sure you scroll down. Product feature classes. So you can come to any of them. I see a lot of people in here do not have this SE or A series instrument. They might have something else, and that's okay. You can always learn from any of these classes. And even if you've learned it before, it's still good. It kind of drills it into that brain of yours. So, and then finally, if you know anybody that would be interested in learning music for the first time, no matter what their age, refer them to us. Tell them we got a great class called Conductor Magic. It's our beginner class. And just let us know. Let your PA know, hey, I've got a friend that wants to join, and we'll help them. And finally, we will put some events on here shortly, but we do special events like concerts and things like that as well. That is the calendar all the way on the bottom. So that's all I've got for you today. So I'm going to play a song on our way out, unless we have any more comments or questions.
Sean, I have a quick question, but it
You bet.
has nothing to do with the class.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. I've been trying to find a style for the song Make the World Go Away. Can you think of one top of your head?
Well, I think that's kind of more of a contemporary country, I would call that. So what I would do is start with your country button.
Yeah, that's what I did.
And go from there.
Yeah.
And I know this instrument's not quite the same as yours, but
Yeah.
this one you have a couple different choices. I would use on some of the higher end ones.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple slower country rhythms called easy country. I think that one might work.
Okay.
And I'm trying to think of some others. Maybe soft and easy because it's kind of a mellow type tune as well.
Okay.
So,
Maybe I have to adjust the tempo.
yeah, or like I say, process of elimination. Find a
Yeah.
style that sounds good,
Yeah.
then slow it down or speed it up, take out the background. Yeah.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
I'll think about it, though, and I'll let you know if I do think of another
Okay.
one. So.
Okay. Thanks.
So to play on the way out here, I'm going to feature another tune that I just like a lot, called "Runaway" by the guy named Del Shannon. I think it was 1961, 62. Just a great song. I'm going to use a rhythm called bandstand. So this is a good example of, this is a song that I wouldn't call a bandstand type of song, but when you speed it up, adjust the background just the way you like it, and the right hand, it sounds great. So here is Del Shannon's "Runaway." Kind of did a little trick at the end, and I changed the ending to do a minor chord right at the very end. You can play around with that too. With your introductions and endings, you can actually change the chord during it. It's even kind of a goofy trick, but that's all I've got for you today, so hopefully you got something out of it. Like I said, if you use it, if the more you use it, the more you'll remember it. So if you wrote it down and you use some of these things, you'll retain it. So keep trucking, keep playing along, and let us know if you have any questions or need any help. Thanks again for coming.
Thank you, Sean, for the
Of course.
instruction.
Of course.
Even us old timers get something out of it.
Good.
Yes.
Good.
Thank you.
Good class, Sean. Good class.
Thank you.
Yes, yeah,
Always enjoy your classes.
yeah.
Nice to see you, Mike. Yeah.
Good to be seen.
Well, take care, everybody.